Okay. 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 Yeah, that's okay. So we're going to talk about karma yoga, and this is going to be a very interactive type of class. So it's designed to be participatory, and so it's not like just the Swami speaks, but this is like at least everybody here, everybody will read a paragraph, and then we'll discuss it as well. So one thing. I would say that also take notes. If anything strikes you, we can take notes on it. So I think what did Brother Shankar do? Everybody would read, then afterwards discussion?
He'd read like a paragraph, or at a certain point, he would have a point where he would want to offer discussion.
Okay, that's fine. So, and I'll just give a brief introduction on Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. So, as I read in the preface of Raja Yoga the last 2 weeks, Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga is one of his unique contributions to Indian philosophy. And the reason why is because unlike Shankaracharya and Ramanujacharya, who said that karma was only a path for purification of the mind, with Swami Vivekananda, he said that this alone can lead to liberation. Just by doing karma yoga itself can lead to liberation, and therefore it's equivalent to Raja Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. It's equally and independently a path. Okay.
You don't need a microphone. You're close enough to the computer. Just when we
Okay,
pass
when
it
we go,
around
okay.
to read.
So now we're gonna start with this chapter 1, and if you have the book, you can just take a look at it as well. Please download it. Karma, that's okay. We could just use the microphone so everyone can hear. Then they have to go to. Okay, that's fine. Karma and its effect on character. So I'll read the first paragraph, and then we'll go around the room. And if anybody has anything that strikes them, you can also just say that something that strikes you. Just something that strikes you that you want to comment. It'll be nice. So chapter 1, karma in its effect on character. So I'll read the first paragraph, then we'll go around the room. The word karma is derived from the Sanskrit kri, to do. All action is karma. Technically, this word also means the effects of actions. In connection with metaphysics, it sometimes means the effects of which our past actions were the causes. But in Karma Yoga, we have simply to do with the word karma as meaning work. The goal of mankind is knowledge. This is the one ideal placed before us by Eastern philosophy. Pleasure is not the goal of man, but knowledge. Pleasure and happiness come to an end. It is a mistake to suppose that pleasure is the goal. The cause of all the miseries we have in the world is that men foolishly think pleasure to be the ideal to strive for. So that's really interesting if we just think about today's society. After a time, man finds that it is not happiness, but knowledge towards which he is going, and that both pleasure and pain are great teachers, and that he learns as much from evil as from good. As pleasure and pain pass before his soul, they leave upon it different pictures, and the results of these combined impression is what is called man's character. If you take the character of any man, it really is but the aggregate of tendencies, the sum total of the bent of his mind. You will find that misery and happiness are equal factors in the formation of that character. Good and evil have an equal share in molding character. And in some instances, misery is a greater teacher than happiness. In studying the great characters the world has produced, I dare say, in the vast majority of cases, it would be found that it was misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out their inner fire more than praise. So this is a really deep, there's a lot to unpack here. I think we could all agree. And I would just say that when we're reading Karma Yoga, let's apply it to our own lives. That's where we get the most benefit. Let's apply it not to something outside, but just to our daily life, our own lives. Uh, so, so I'll just raise some questions and then we'll go around whatever strikes anybody. If anyone has a strong opinion they want to utter, we'll hear it. He says the goal of mankind is knowledge. That is the one ideal placed before us by Eastern philosophy. So how many here agree with that? The goal of mankind is knowledge. Rajiv, you're saying yes? Snehalata? Okay. Go ahead.
But what if knowledge
Do
brings
you have the microphone? Why don't you use the microphone? Yeah, we have to keep that, yeah. So everyone can hear.
What if knowledge brings happiness and pleasure? Because, for example, scientist, his whole pursuit is knowledge, but that gives him makes them happy and
Right.
give them pleasure.
Okay. Go ahead, go Jyoti. Yeah, we want like a discussion here. Go ahead.
I think of this knowledge
Yeah,
as self.
everyone say their name so people
This is
can.
Jyoti. I think of knowledge in this context as capital S, self-knowledge.
Okay.
Knowledge of the self.
Right.
That's how I think of it, rather than scientific knowledge or worldly knowledge or
Yes.
spiritual knowledge. Yes, that's a better term.
Yes. Yes. Who else wants to speak on that? That's a good point. Okay. So that's good. So that makes sense. So the goal of mankind, well, it could be both. The goal of mankind is knowledge. Knowledge is the higher self. But even when we're in our different job occupations, even when we're learning, they say that how do we progress? How do we learn about ourselves? The lower S even. We can't get to the higher self. We also have to know about our lower selves as well. And so each moment of life is an experience. Each moment of life he's going to talk about will reveal itself that what the goal of life is. So every time some blow especially comes, they say a layer, some insight will be revealed. It's only do we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. There's a lesson to catch in every type of misery that comes. Now, when you're saying the goal of the scientist, he acquires knowledge and he can also acquire pleasure. So that's true as well. So, so there's different types of knowledge. But so Jyoti is right. The highest goal, we say in Bengali, Ramakrishna used to say, Manusher Uddesha Bhagavan Labh. So the aim of life of mankind is to realize God, the knowledge of the self. But also we have to, as we go, say, through our work, we get knowledge every day. So we have to acquire knowledge to make progress in family life, work life. That thing we'd have to. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if you wanna speak, come pick up the microphone. Each person be responsible for doing that on their
Yeah.
own.
So how? I think it will be revealed later in part of the chapter. But if I at this point, my perception is by doing karma yoga, you're getting to the path of God or the self-realization. So this is the way you do it without having a pleasure or detachment.
So we'll get that. Let's continue. We'll get to that afterwards. we'll go back to the text right now, and then afterwards I think it'll kind of clarify itself as we go on. Let's go to the text. So that's, so pleasure is not the goal of man, but, okay, anything strike anybody of this passage? Even on Zoom, someone can say if they like. Okay, Rajiv's going to, go ahead, Rajiv.
Swamiji, I think especially the pain and pleasure part.
Okay,
I read this book when I was probably 14, 15 years. That was when I started reading Swami Vivekananda, right? So one thing that struck me was the scriptures, Ramayana, even Mahabharata and Sri Krishna, right? So
Yeah.
they were gods. But Rama had to go to forest, suffer misery and all that, right? I mean, Krishna, his birth story, he was taken from a jail in a river flood. Angels had to guide him out,
yeah,
right? And he stayed away from his palace and kingdom. He was a prince, right?
right,
And he had to go through misery. And for me, it struck like, okay, God suffered as well. And I think somehow coming back to karma and being scientist and student and all that, in my own life, I actually kind of lost track last 15 years or so, right? And then and then life happens, right? It's not an excuse, but it's just the way samsara is, right?
right.
A year and a half ago, I had an accident. It was really bad, a neck and a head injury. I couldn't work for over a year. And I had to go through-
Speak, are you speaking to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
And I had to go through PTSD and all that, right? So the suffering, the misery, and I used to get 5, 6 nightmares every night, right? So I attended the retreat of Swami Vivekananda. That set my knowledge, I think, the right knowledge, right? Not the outside, but the nightmares were there, but it didn't bother me. After a few months, they went up.
okay,
And I think I look back and I say, I always used to say God must have had a plan or something to do it. And I realized in a year and a half, I probably progressed what I could have done in 3 decades.
okay. Well, why was that? Because,
The spirituality, what I know about it, now it's like I can see through different aspects, like at a bodily level, or, Hanuman says the 3 levels, right? At the body level, the jiva, and then so it kind of like comes naturally to me, like I can cut through the discrimination. Like if I see that, I'm like, no, this is not right.
right,
Well, and here it says,
Jyoti, you had to speak in the mic.
misery is a better teacher than happiness.
And I totally agree with that. And that was my comment, is that, we can't look ahead. When that happened, I thought I was reaching peak of my career. And then this accident happens, my brain, I lost a lot of memory and all that. And there was a point of time I had like this inner guilt. Why did that person came and hit me? I mean, it wasn't my fault. And I was going through a lot of this, and then I realized it doesn't matter. And then after attending the retreat of Swami Vivekananda, I forgave the guy who hit me, I forgave myself, and I said, God, this is a path, different path for me. I can see the knowledge, I can see this thing. And I shouldn't be saying this, but in a way, I'm glad I had to go through all that pain and suffering. Yes, physical pain and mental agony, I would say. But in the end, I totally agree with what Swami Vivekananda says, that, the misery, the pain and suffering
Yeah.
is a great teacher.
So this is a really important point that I think that this is actually where Vedantic spiritual life really begins, when we realize that we're not here to change the world. I read a beautiful quote from Rumi yesterday. Someone sent by WhatsApp something that Rumi said that when I was younger, I used to think I used to want to change the world. Then once I became wise, I realized I now want to change myself. So it's not objective, subjective. So this is the thing that when we reach a certain point, we see that the world's going to go on in its own way. We start trying to change everything else and really try to change our own self.
And one last thing, Swamiji,
Yeah.
is I think reading is one thing. I've read it, right, over
Yeah.
the years. From my younger days, I was lucky to be introduced to Swami Vivekananda. but to actually live that in the last year and a half has been a very enlightening or different experience, I would say, right? We can always say, oh, pain and suffering will do, you gotta forgive people, but to actually do it, and I think the biggest thing from all this self thing was my ego took a lot of beating.
Right.
I was here, and
Yeah.
then it's like right up there. I wouldn't say it's completely
That's
gone.
really, I hope everyone on Zoom can hear Rajiv because it's really powerful what he said. You're putting actually in the last year and a half what you've gone through. That's incredible. That
Yeah.
through this accident, how you progressed through Vedanta. That's amazing. Yeah.
And I know it's just the start, but I think it's just I had to go through the pain to actually understand what it is. So in a way, that one paragraph
Yeah.
summarizes my life so far. So I think that
Yeah.
it's
Absolutely.
very powerful paragraph.
Yeah. Um, okay. Anyone else want to comment on anything? Okay. I agree with that. In fact, I find that anything, even like a knee injury or when I hurt my back, then you always learn something through pain. You're not so much through pleasure. Yeah, but we do learn through pain. I think we do learn through pain, and I think that's if we, Rajiv, what you said, if we have that attitude, then we still fear. Nobody likes pain, but if we learn to take it with the right, there's always a lesson. That's what I've heard again and again. The universe is always trying to teach us something through this pain. It's waking us up. So even athletes, I think that the basketball players, they said, I think Kobe Bryant, he said when he was injured, he would be more focused when he would be on the court. So something about, they say that you should have all your faculties healthy and at its best, but something about when you get older, when you age, when your faculties are not working as properly, you get a different level of insight. You actually realize that these faculty, I'm not this body, I'm not this mind, and who am I don't know, but there's something different about it. Swayamji, please tell, you give me the
I
microphone.
have one thing too.
Okay, Swayamji's. Yeah, go ahead, Swayamji.
Yes. I received this quote today from Bailur Mutt Swami Vivekananda, and I think it kind of ties in nicely with what we are talking about right now. What he says was, when the world no more bothers you, you are at the threshold of inner world. When you see divine in the external world, you enter the inner world. When you love the world, God reveals himself to you. If we don't get these knocks in life, I'm bringing this point because you said that as you age, a different insight kind of develops. It's because of these knocks that we kind of learn to not let the world bother us, and thereby we are at least entering the threshold of that inner world. If we don't even enter the threshold, then we can't proceed any further. So I think these knocks are helping us get to that first point.
Yes,
Personal.
that's true. And I was just in Jyoti Wogat, but just on top, I've talked to one devotee today, one of my friends, and she's a mother of a daughter, and she's going through some really traumatic types of experiences. And so how she's, but in spite of that, how calm she is. So I have to say that I think this Vedantic knowledge, it really does, people do try to, I think that's a sign of a Vedantic student. When something bad happens, we're trying to learn from it actually, what's going on. Jyoti, please go ahead.
I'm just reminded of a quote that my teacher used to give, that pain and suffering are a great motivator for change. And that oftentimes without those, we're not motivated to make change.
Yeah,
To
right,
change in our life. And I just love that.
right. Yes,
You don't need it.
yeah, okay. Anyone on Zoom, else on Zoom have any comment they'd like to add? Otherwise, we'll go on. Now, raise another question. So, as pleasure and pain pass before his soul, no, well, let's go. After a time, man finds that it is not happiness, but knowledge towards which he is going, and that holds pleasure and pain and that both pleasure and pain are great teachers, and that he learns as much from evil as from good. I would say you learn more from evil than from good, actually. As pleasure and pain pass before his soul, they leave upon it different pictures, and the result of these combined impression is what is called man's character. That's very interesting. Swami Vivekananda always talked about transformation of character. So, what do you think he means by that? As pleasure and pain pass before his soul, they leave upon it different pictures, and the result of these combined impressions is what is called man's character.
It's basically saying your experience mold you.
Your experiences mold you, yes. Yeah. Okay, you wanted to say something, Rajiv?
But isn't that contradictory to what the ultimate goal of Vedanta is to move beyond your experiences, your memory, chitta, vritti, and all that, right? I mean, ultimately, you want to see divine in everyone, or, you have to go past your personal. So I'm a little confused here. So is Swamiji saying that is your character currently where all these impressions are? Or is it, because at the end of the day, the Vedanta says forget what your experiences are, what your tendencies are, right?
Right. So that's a good question. Does anyone want to give a reply? Okay. Say again. Say your name and go ahead.
This is Khalil. I think the way I understand it, that the character building is a dynamic process. So he's just talking about the process. This is how your character is building, but probably experience is not the only thing. It's a strong influence. That's the way I understand.
Right, and I'll give one thing to that, and then Jyoti can. I think that they say, like, to make what is it, the shalagram? You know, shalagram in Vaishnavism, or it's this type of rock. It's a type of rock. It's worshipped by Hindu by Vaishnavism as the emblem of Vishnu himself. So how it becomes a shalagram, it has to go through so many, it's just a lump of rock, it has to go through so many different types of blows. Those blows actually, they help us to progress. Swami Vivekananda said in Raja Yoga, man is potentially divine. Human beings are potentially divine. The goal is to manifest that divinity. So we can say these things that ultimately we're divine, but how to manifest that? Just by saying it is not going to do. We're in ignorance. Advaita says that, Yoga says that, Sankhya says that, Bhakti says that. How to remove that ignorance? It's through these blows. Each time we get a blow of life, I think in the two Upanishads, some of you might have read that in the two Upanishads, there's the higher bird and lower bird. And the lower bird, every time it sees the higher bird, it's a reflection of its own self. Every time it takes eats some bitter fruit, meaning some unpleasant experience of life, it takes 2 steps up, closer and closer towards the higher bird. So what that also does is these experiences, whether it's good, this sukha dukkhe, this sukha, this dukkha, the unpleasant experiences, they give us detachment towards this world. Because why? Because they once you understand that you have a broken relationship. Okay, in Bengali we say, Keo amar nijer noy. Nobody in this world is really my own. We get that insight. Same thing when something good happens, some success we get. So for 1 or 2, when I passed the bar exam, so for 1 or 2 days I felt good. After that thing goes. So even the good things, in Yoga Sutras we call this parinama dukkha, that even the pleasant things, they pass away. They don't stay. The transience of the pleasant things and the dukkha, the suffering we get, the knocks it gives us detachment from the world. So these two things slowly, they help then we get more and more attached, more or less attached to the world and more attached to the divine. That's the ultimate goal that these experiences give us.
But that's how Vairagya comes in, right?
That's how Vairagya comes in too. So that's the thing. So that's why these blows are necessary. So Swami Vivekananda used to say, if you really want to progress in life, go the place where they'll slander your name, where they'll give you blows. One Swami Vedananda ji used to tell us, he's this 92-year-old monk in San Francisco, and he's the sweetest monk I've ever met. I think I've never met I think in 60, 70 years, nobody's ever, anyone who's known him in the last 60, 70 years as a monk that he's been around, no one's seen him but from his early days, they say that nobody's ever heard him say a word of complaint or show anger towards another. So this is Swami Vedananda ji. So what he said about this was that, brother, if you really want to progress, how do you really progress? Go to a place where they don't know you're there and they're talking about you. Then you're really, because normally you don't know, okay, we don't know this person's there, we're talking about them. So normally if they're talking about somebody, it might not be the most flattering things. So he said, just go there and just be there, just listen. And if you really want to make progress, that's the best way to make progress.
Bah.
Yeah, so that's, this is our Swami Vedananda ji. Yeah, but you have to use then also say your name.
Yes, I remember. This is Shiva Das. So, one thing that you said, that Swami said, that is really significant is that each soul is potentially divine. Emphasis on the potential part. And I think that without character, this knowledge doesn't mean much. Without good character, I don't think you care to delve deeper into this. I think in general, people that come to this information and this knowledge have some good character.
Sure.
Now, there are some people who may have been raised around this knowledge or information and just disregard it at youth. But I think in general, people who come to this knowledge probably are of good standing and good character in general. And so I think further or deepening your knowledge with this information, I think it also grows your character in a way.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say. And I just think that's important.
Yes. Now, on that potentially divine, I just want to add one caveat to that. You might be thinking, Sean's not here, but he might be thinking, but Advaita said you are divine. Why potentially? So that's a good point. Yoga, this is actually the yoga system which we're taking, that's you're potentially divine. The goal is to manifest that. Advaita Vedanta, you are already that. Tattvamasi, Aham Brahmasmi, you are that. There's nothing, you are already that. It's just this, whether you realize it or not, you are already that. So.
Yeah, and yes, I agree. At the highest level, we are divine. You are already that.
Yeah, but
I think at the individual physical embodiments, human level, to realize that is important. But yes, at the highest level,
absolutely, and that has to be realized. In fact, in that regard, Ramakrishna, there was this kind of a person practicing Advaita Vedanta, and he was found out that he was having some illicit relation with somebody, and then he's telling Ramakrishna, "Shab Brahman, everything is Brahman," and Thakur replied, "Ami tuthu tomar Brahma, tomar Advaita upure. I spit upon your Advaita Vedanta."
Bah.
So that which does not promote this good character, because that's where Vedanta says this yamas and niyamas, this shatsampati. So we have to stand upon that. In the Yoga Sutras, it's yamas, niyamas. So it's there in every different type of tradition that we have. That's why, whether it's Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, Bhakti, the Ten Commandments in Christianity, any type of school you talk about, Buddhism, Jainism, all these different yamas and niyamas are there. Swamiji, did you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to say sometimes this feels like a catch 22. If you don't have some kind of experience, it's hard to really get that unshakable faith. And if you don't have some kind of faith, you will probably not get the experience. So you just have to keep working at it, I guess.
So she said, if you don't have experience,
Then it's hard to have the unshakable faith. I mean, it remains at the knowledge level, the Advaita,
okay,
But if you don't have some kind of faith to begin with, then you won't be uh, you won't have the inclination to practice and get the experience. So,
Right. So to that we would say that no. In fact, Swami Vivekananda. That's a very good. So Swami Vivekananda said in, I think it's Karma Yoga. He said later on, nothing can become without some type of experience already there. Otherwise, we won't have interest in something. So there must be in Yoga Sutras we call this aklishta vrittis, meaning some divine samskaras are there that's calling us to come in today, listen, discuss these ideas. So many things we can be doing, but somehow these ideas are drawing us. So something is there. Now, how to strengthen it, you can say, that's the other part. But you can't deny something is not there. In all of us, something is there. So that we have to respect and honor. Some type of faith is there within us. Some type of knowledge is there within us. Because if we don't honor that, we can't grow from that. So we have to give homage to whatever, I think Sarvapriyananda mentioned this in one lecture too, whatever knowledge we've already acquired, we have to pay homage to that. Only upon a one you can add, you can build. Upon zeros you cannot build.
thank you. That was very helpful.
Yeah. No, it's really important for all of us. So never play that card of humility. I know nothing. No. In the Kathopanishad, Bahuname mi prathamo, Bahuname mi madhyamaha. So Nachiketa says, somewhere I'm first and somewhere I'm middle, but nowhere am I last. I could also do something. So same thing with all of us. We also have to have that, what they say in the Gita, Atma Vishyash, faith in the Atman, that we also can do something. That must be there. And what works against that is what I talked about in one of those workshops I gave on negative, skillful means to handling difficult people, is the cognitive negative bias. That 100 people may say good things about us, but if someone says one thing bad about this, we're enemies for life. Not only this life, next life too. You see that in the Mahabharata. I think Bhishma, he insulted somebody. Remember that in that marriage, and then she took a vow. She was a man, so no, she was a woman. She took a vow. She said, "I'm not going to find satisfaction till I come back and kill Bhishma." So she took another life, another birth as a half man, half woman, just to kill Bhishma. So this type of thing. So where were we going? How did I get into that? No, how did I? No, something you said. There was a connection. How did I get into that?
About the fact that we do have some experience, some
Yes.
knowledge.
Yeah.
That's why we are here. So do
Yeah.
not negate that.
Don't negate that. Always build upon that. Always build upon that. And even if sometimes even some people might say negative things about us. That's okay if they say negative things about us, but then we should also we should objectively evaluate it. And I'll give a talk later on this growth mindset. We should be objective. Swami Vivekananda said this: Maya is nothing but a statement of facts. So be able to objectively evaluate it. Yet we cannot objectively evaluate it unless we also know something good within ourselves. Otherwise, it's called the fixed mindset. If anybody says something damaging, my mind, like a house of cards, will collapse. No, that should not be the case. So we can only really objectively evaluate something if in the back of my mind I also know my strengths as well. I know what I know and I know what I don't know. I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And what I am, I can build upon that. That's very, very important to reaffirm that. So even somebody might critique me, Swamiji, you're not like this. Then I would argue, well, you know what? Let's go at that logically. If you want to, lots of times we hear about these things from other people and not the person who says it. They don't say it to our face. Even then, I can objectively evaluate it. Okay, what do you mean by that? Okay, you said this about me. But maybe when was our last encounter? Maybe 12 years ago. So what do you know about me now? Maybe I've updated myself since then. Always cultivate our own narrative too. Taking what other people are saying, is there something I can learn from that? But the same time, know our own strengths, our own weak, and know that strength. Evaluate, emphasize that as well. Because don't worry about having an ego. The world always wants to tear us down. So our thing is how to keep ourselves up. Yet at the same time, if we're too arrogant, that's also not right either. And we're blocking the knowledge coming from the outside world. We also have to be open to the knowledge that which is people, otherwise, how will we know? When we're young, our parents will correct us. And even now, you can't correct a young child anymore. That's even more difficult now. So you can't correct. If you correct, I'm going to complain against you. So where will you get, how will you learn about yourself otherwise? It's not so easy to objectively, you could say Drigdrisha Viveka. But notice even in these classes about Drigdrisha Viveka, it's always about the other. It's never about our own mind. Nobody ever says, let me objectify my own mind. It's the most difficult thing to do.
I think that goes to Viveka, right? And also discrimination of what's real and unreal. You need to develop that ability to actually see through. Like, people may say 20 different things, 10 may be real, 10 may be unreal, right? And you know, okay, 10 I don't really apply, but 10 I want to really look at it and develop myself.
So that's not such an easy. So Rajiv was saying that develop the power of viveka, discrimination. Now that's actually, I was once talking with one Maharaj, and he said something really interesting. It's actually God's grace to learn from the miseries of life. It's not so easy. To learn from the miseries of life is actually quite difficult. So that comes from this viveka, this nitya anitya viveka vastu, discrimination between the real and the unreal, and learning what's the vastu, what's the real, and what's the anitya, what's the unreal. Understanding that in every experience of life.
And I think this one says man's character here. Swamiji doesn't say good or bad, right? I think this is something which is on my mind for the last few months. Is I'm trying to get away from judging a character or anything, right? So you could see anyone, a homeless person or whatever. Sometimes you have to think that, okay, what if I am in his life, all his life and situation? What choices would I have made?
Right.
It's easy for me to sit here in my comfortable chair and look at others and say, oh, look, he's this character, that character, right? But put me in his life, all his life. What choices would I have made? Right?
And Ramakrishna actually supports what you said. One time there were these these devotees from aristocratic families coming to Dakshineshwar, and they saw this prostitute leaving. She was a devotee of Thakur, and they were kind of judging her. And then Thakur told them, don't judge. It's for the sake of them being prostitutes that you have a pure character. So this world will always go in this play of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So for the purpose of one person's pure character, another person has to play that role as well. So Girish Ghosh, all of you have heard of Girish Ghosh, I assume, the Bohemian character. So sometimes the pure disciples of Ramakrishna, the monastic disciples, used to tease him, saying that you've engaged in all these different types of things, all these, and then Girish Ghosh once got upset. He said, in the next life, I'll play the hero and you'll play the villain. So it's actually, from one Advaitic standpoint, it's all just the play of the three gunas. And so we're all playing in these three gunas, and in that way we're progressing from lower truth to higher truth. And that ultimately, that's what we mean by progression of character, from lower truth to higher truth. Okay. And in studying the great characters the world has produced, I dare say in the majority of cases, it would be found that it was misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out their inner fire more than praise. Glenn, are you there? What do you think of this statement? It was misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out their inner fire more than praise. What does anyone think? Um, Glenn, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think it is. I think it's true, and you kind of experience that through
You need a
life.
microphone.
Can
Okay,
y'all hear? We can hear it, Swami.
okay, that's okay. Okay,
Hey,
go
can you hear
ahead.
me?
Yeah,
I was gonna say you kind of experience it through life. What they say. To make a diamond, you need pressure.
yeah,
Um, iron sharpens iron. It's never through the easy way that you become greater than or improve. It's always through some type of difficulty or some challenge. Even when you go to the gym, you work out, you got to put on more weight, and then your body adapts. And so I think this is just a truth that we experience every day, but we may not be cognizant of it.
right. That's really interesting because then you know that book Flow. I think you've heard, all of you, some of you have read that book Flow. What's his Mihaly? Uh, remember that? Okay. Anyways, he says something interesting that in order to grow, you need the contrast. You need the proper amount of challenge and the proper amount of skill. So if the challenge is too much and the skill is not enough, you'll experience anxiety. If the challenge is too little and the skill is more, Glenn, in what is that martial art that you do? I'm sorry,
Oh no,
Shiva.
that's Daryl. I
Oh,
think
sorry,
I
sorry.
think Daryl.
Shiva, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. Shivadas. What's the
Kendo.
martial? Huh?
Kendo.
Kendo. So Shivadas does this martial art called Kendo, and so he was explaining to me yesterday, and it's a very fascinating thing. So what would happen if you faced like a lesser opponent,
I would probably win very quickly.
and but that you would experience boredom at that time.
I wouldn't say boredom.
If you kept just facing lesser opponents, would you grow? Would you increase your skill?
There are ways to increase your skill against a lesser opponent.
But all constantly, if you face that without any kind of pressure.
No.
So right. So this is what this author of Flow was saying, that Shiva, that's what you said. You need the proper amount of skill. It has to be a balance between skill and challenge. So I think it's a good point that Glenn made, that I think that too often we look for like a comfortable life. In fact, that Swamiji said right here, the goal of life is pleasure. We might not think pleasure is not just pleasure is not necessarily just Jyoti making good fish, a good, really good salmon or something like that, or a good ice cream, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Pleasure can also just be a comfortable life, not wanting to go beyond, not wanting to progress, not wanting to go stretch beyond our comfort zone. So we have to watch, we have to be careful about that. We always have to try to take one. In fact, that's why in the Yoga Sutras, they says this tapa, swadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. Tapas means what? Snehalata? Tapas means austerity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
burning.
Burning. So we always,
Tapasya.
tapasya. Tapasya. And even fasting, some people do fasting. They're going through a difficult time. So we do fasting for that reason. So something we have to push ourselves. So we should all make a goal today. What do you say? Let's think of something that we should push ourselves tomorrow morning. Something we should do to push ourselves.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, something.
Tomorrow's Saturday. Can we do it? Can we
Oh
start
yeah, yeah.
on
Okay.
Monday?
Oh, Jyoti's saying start on Monday, but the land of well, someone said this, right? The land of progress is there. There is no tomorrow. Swayamji, go ahead.
Swami, I just wanted to share the observation that taking care of my granddaughter, when you were talking about this level of difficulty and the skill, children somehow instinctively seem to have that. So if I give her a toy or read a book that's higher than her age level, she will kind of show disinterest, but she's observing. And then a few days later, when I'm not even exposing that toy to her, it may be on the side, she'll come and pick it up herself and do it. And then once she knows that she's mastered it, she'll come back to it periodically, to reinforce that. And she, she's happy doing that. At the same time, the challenging one, she won't directly come and do, but she'll observe and then come back and do it when she feels that she's got it.
Right. Well, I would kind of push back on that a little bit, Swayamji. What I would say is that according to this book, The Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck, in fact, this was what her whole book was based on. She saw one set of infant children, they would be given puzzles. And some of them, they would do really well when the puzzle was easy. But when the puzzle became more difficult, they would become frustrated and give up. There was another set of children, when the puzzle became more difficult, whether they succeeded or not, they became more engaged. So they said that this first set of students that became frustrated, but they could do easy things well, they had the fixed mindset that whatever I know, this is enough, I want to show what I know. And the second group of students, they said that that was the growth mindset. Whatever I know is just the starting point, but there's so much I can learn and develop myself. So I would say to that, that's the thing about that. Lakshmi ji, do you have something would you like to add? You've been listening. Would you like to add anything? What about the statement? It says that it was, misery that taught more than happiness. It was poverty that taught more than wealth. It was blows that brought out their inner fire more. What do you think of that?
I was just thinking about Swamiji himself, like when he was so like lived in a wealthy household, and then he went through utmost poverty where he did not have even food to eat, and it was like he withstood all of that, and then he came out like fire. I mean, he just like pushed forward because he had the, like what you said before, like there are some people who have is the medal the word, who have that ability to push forward and move on. And then there are some who will just give up and who won't go any further. And that reminds me of what Thakur himself said one time, like when I think if I'm not mistaken, he kept ignoring Swamiji. Like his Swamiji would come all the time, and but Thakur wouldn't even look at him. He would be talking to others, just totally ignore him. And then one time Thakur would ask him, how is it that I kept ignoring you every day and you still came? And then he says, but I came because I wanted to see you. And then Ramakrishna says, it is because of the character that you possess that you still came, even when I ignored. It's that kind of a personality that can really and truly can push, even when that person faces utmost misery, or not everyone can do that. And I think you have to have that special something, the inner drive is probably the word.
Yeah, when you say that, and you speak of Swamiji, so I remember that right near Advaita Ashram, Kolkata, there's a place where he was the headmaster for 3 months of a school, this metropolitan school, and it's in Swami Bodhananda's reminiscences, monastic disciples of Swami Vivekananda, and so it's a very vivid description. So Swamiji would wear a chadar. He was Narendranath Datta. He would go there, and he became so popular that the grandson of Vidya Shagar, the world famous philanthropist, became jealous, and he gave Swamiji a bad name. This was after Swami Vivekananda's father passed away. He was trying to raise money so his mother and sisters and younger brothers would not go into poverty, would not starve. And at that time, his brother he spread a bad name, so Swamiji could not find a job anywhere, in spite of being Narendranath Datta. So he talked about, so these were first-hand experiences that he had. But in contrast, I'll give you one contrast to that. Buddha, where it says it was misery that taught more than happiness. Well, Buddha was born a prince, this Gautama. He was the apple of his father and mother, or his mother passed away, his father, and his wife, beautiful young wife, children. He was the community. He was the young prince. So he had everything. Within that, all that wonderful thing, he saw misery. 4 days he went out of his kingdom. One day he saw old age. His father protected him from old age. Next day he saw illness. If anybody in the kingdom became ill, his father purposefully moved that person out of the way because he did not want Buddha to gain, Buddha had the prophecy. He would either be a great prince, a great king,
Right.
or a great monk. So his father took all care to remove any sign of old age, illness, and death.
Yeah.
Buddha one day went out. So this is one of the Yoga Sutras too. This parinama dukkha. Within this sukha, this pleasure, we find dukkha. Because of why? What was that? Because of the impermanence.
Because of the empathy. I think these people were extremely sensitive and extremely empathetic. Like the other day, you gave this example, and I'm trying to remember if it was that Wednesday class. You talked about Swamiji, like he woke up in the middle of the night when there was an earthquake or tsunami in Japan. Like a lot of people died. And you talked about like how Swamiji woke up and he was like, he kept telling, like, I have like a bad feeling in my heart. I mean, these people are like extremely empathetic. They see God in everybody. And I think they walk in everybody's shoes that they can feel what everybody else is feeling.
Right. That's one thing. And also they know they have to go through suffering themselves. Without that knowledge of suffering, they won't be able. Ramakrishna said this about Swamiji too. Without your having the knowledge of suffering, how will you be able to help others out of suffering? So this was a thing too, that all these incarnations, Christ, Buddha, Rama, Krishna, Swamiji, all these great past souls, they went through so much. If you look at even what they went through, Swami Vivekananda's mother, I used to go every week to where he lived, his whole place. His mother, what she put, her husband passed away in the prime of his life. They went from richness to abject poverty. All their relatives are trying to they're trying to make them homeless. Then Swami Vivekananda's mother's daughter commits suicide. She loses, then is Narendranath Datta. He becomes a monk. And then he passes away. Swamiji's mother passed away 10 years after Swamiji passed away. Can you imagine the type of suffering she had to endure? Same thing with Ramakrishna's mother. She lost her husband when he was quite young. And then she lost so many sons. Rameshwar, Ramkumar. In fact, after Ramakrishna's second brother passed away, he prayed to the Divine Mother that the mother, he said, Ma or mone to tik kore dao. Don't make it that she loses her pagla hoina. Don't make it that she goes mad. He was really worried about his mother, that what would happen to his mother after the second son passed away. So then when Thakur told the news, when Thakur told the news to his mother, hey, Baba eta hoy, eta shobai ashpe jabe. So everyone's coming and going. Nobody, no one stays forever. So this was Thakur's mother's grace. So we also pray that, these incidents happen, that more than, they say actually suffering, what is actually suffering? This is also in Buddhism as well. The arrow comes in. There's objective and subjective fact. But what true suffering is, according to Buddhism, the arrow comes, but it's my reaction to the arrow. So if we can bring in that viveka, that discrimination when these things happen, then we'll see that suffering gets less. Yeah, go ahead, Rajiv. Yeah.
I think, Swamiji, just a continuation to the suffering and the lessons you learned, right? It reminded me in Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, he would walk with his devotees or the monks, and he would say, he got more money now, look. So what he's meaning is when he was poorer or when he was suffering, he was a different man.
Yeah.
And he learned his lesson, but now
Yeah.
he got the money, he forgot his lesson,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So Thakur used to walk and say, this guy got more money now,
Yeah,
I can see that.
Because he's talking different. In fact, Ramakrishna gave that example of the frog, and the frog, like he gives the frog, like the bull's walking over the frog's, where the frog's staying, and the frog says, Mr. Bull, don't do this again. And then so he gives the example or kono taka pechin. So they got some type of a money there, and that's why they're changing it to obiman hoy. They get some type of pride. How money changes somebody. So this is the thing, yeah. Geeta ji, did you want to say, do you want to add anything? What do you think of that last sentence that it was misery that taught more than happiness, poverty that taught more than wealth? If you have anything, blows that brought out inner fire, more than praise. Do you have anything in your own life experience? Do you spend lots of time with Dadu? You want to give us any of his teachings? Anything he might have said?
Um,
Dadu, by the way, I just let you know, Geeta ji, she served this. How many of you, Dadu Vaswani? How many of
Dada
you?
Vaswani.
Dada Vaswani.
Yeah.
He's a great spiritual. He wrote many books, and I think he just passed. When did he pass away? A few years ago, just very recently.
2018.
2018. So if you could see some of his books, they're really I think for one for Buddha Bharata, I had to do a book review for one of his books. So normally that if somebody says in each book I would do a book review, I would always underline one or two passages that really struck me as original. But in his book, I analyzed underlined every single sentence. Every single sentence was came from his own experience, which was very powerful. And Gita ji, yeah, did you want to say? So she was his disciple, and she also served him as well. So she's very blessed. Go ahead.
I just want to thank the group here and you, because I learned so much from all of you. And with sharing, there's a different insight. And I also wanted to share something. He said, Dada would always say that both rain and sunshine are needed for the rainbow. And he said, often people think that when we come to satsang, we will find peace, but it's actually there that you get beaten up a lot. So that way you learn to become like a ball. So when everybody's hitting you from different directions, then you learn to become like a ball and then you roll in life.
Right. That's right. Well, I say we roll for some time, but then we get back up then our ego comes up again. That's when rolling is like we self-surrender. The ego becomes low at that time, but at some time we come.
No, a
ego
ball
rises
also,
again.
the more the ball is hit on the floor, higher it goes.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that's true.
So the more you get hit, but if we accept it at that moment as prasad, then you are more open to learning.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think let's all just, I'm telling myself that as well. So I think we should all just, if we can somehow, rather than seeking the comfortable life, yes, trying to seek a little bit beyond our comfort zone. Some challenge we take up. And I think that that's a really good thing to do. That stretches ourselves. Something we should leave here thinking today that we should push ourselves in some way. Really, whether physically, mentally, whatever it may be. But something for the purpose of going towards God. You have to speak into the thing. You can.
I think one of the things, at least, even when I was suffering, when I couldn't see really the light of it, it was different. But when I got to a moment where light was shining, in a, not literally, but figuratively, right? So at that time, it's almost like what's in your mind and heart, it's all out in the open. There's no closet door to hide your feeling and shove it under and say, oh, I'm not going to deal with it later, right? So I think when you look inwards, and especially during the suffering, these things can come up.
Yes. Now you said something really interesting that Ramakrishna would refer to as shorla. Shorla means, it's translated in Bangla in Bengal to English as skylessness. So the shorla, I think in Bangla he used to say shorla na hoy, Bhagavan ke pawa jai na. So unless one is guileless, one cannot realize God. So what you just said right now is that we can say without complexes. the mind becomes without, the cobwebs are removed temporarily. I'm not saying everything is gone, but a lot of times when we try to deceive the world, we also deceive ourselves. That's the extra karma we get from that. We think we're being clever. Ramakrishna said this about the crow. Kakulo upure jai. So these crows go very, very high, high in the air, and they think they're very clever. But where is their attention? Towards the carcass on the ground. Same thing, we think we're being clever towards the world. I'm going to fool the world. But we don't know, unless the mind is also just clean inside, we're fooling ourselves.
And I think it was a lot of conflict with me, and I was going through multiple therapies, and one was the psychotherapy with the psychologist, right?
I'm sorry, Rajiv, so we know, is this after your accident, right?
Right. So there was a period, right, when I wasn't aware of all this, or I couldn't see. So I was going through, but when I started seeing the light or knowledge or whatever we call, then it appeared conflicting with what my therapist was saying. My therapist was like, no, keep it under wraps. You're already in trauma. Don't take it all out. But they were coming back in the dreams. Those impressions were, it's only after when I started, everything was wide open in light, that I was able to confront. It was not easy. It's like, life full of stuff you've closed doors on, open.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a conflict on how do you handle, right? So I think that goes back to this pain and suffering comes in. Are we gonna just ignore them, or we take something out of it, and so it's more, I wouldn't say permanent, but at least more lasting, more than, once you get the money, you forget everything.
Yeah. So two things on that. And so also I want to say, because Rajiv is being so frank, and we really appreciate his, this is like a small community we have here, but we really appreciate your honesty. And so all Jyoti, Swayamji, all of you who organized, Rajiv said that he had this, after this accident, he was, if you don't mind, he was facing a lot of turmoil, inner turmoil. So the journey towards recovery came after Sarvaprinanda came. So after that, after the last year and a half, this 180. So all of you see how these small things you guys do, we don't realize the effect it has. You're taking so much care and trouble to organize these swamis to come. You never know where inspiration will strike.
And to add that, right, I'm being very frank and honest here. I'm not there's no ego for me, so probably I wouldn't have shared this 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I will say this, I was in a bad condition emotionally, physically, financially, because I was not working. And Swamiji, I say that literally switched something in my brain that it saved my life. And I'm not exaggerating one bit. My therapist was shocked. She's like, where did you go? And then she took all the details of it. But I think the point is, really huge thank you. I can't thank enough for organizing that. And it felt like, I think the topic Ashtavakra Samhita.
Yeah.
I checked the Swamiji's schedule. It was only in Atlanta here he did that. And that is about the trauma, right? Janaka going through the trauma.
Right.
And one more thing, I'm being brutally honest here. I could barely fill gas to come attend the spiritual retreat.
The gas.
The gas money.
Oh, okay, right. Wow.
Because at that time I shut everything down. I wanted to keep the roof on my family. That's all I was caring about, right?
Yeah.
And just to come in, and I couldn't donate anything. I could barely afford gas or food at that time to come to the retreat. But somehow I did it. And for some reason, I lived here 18 years. I thought there was no Vedanta center in Atlanta. It was so weird. And 3 days before Swamiji came, I was looking something and it popped up. And then I looked at it and I said, Swamiji is coming? And I was like, wow. I think it's all aligned in a way.
Yeah. Well, I wonder. So IMG, you should tell your other board trust. They'll be these are good. You guys are all doing so hard work, and it takes so much. But these are you guys. You should all feel good about this too.
And I can't thank enough. I mean, there is in my life to say, even a small event. You may say, "Oh, Swamiji is here." He's talking about Vedanta and all that. But you never know. It may be saving someone's life, like it did to me.
Sure.
Swami, it was actually a devotee by name John Gano who took the initiative to send the invitation to Swami Sarvapriyananda. And of course, then Brother Shankara was there at the time to guide us,
Okay.
and then we just kind of helped a little bit.
Right. Anyways, it's all a group effort. There's not just one person. Everyone's, they say this nimitta karana, who is the instrumental cause, who everyone plays a role in it. Okay, so what time is it? Right, 8:43. Okay, I think that we've talked about this today. So any other
Oh, this is cool. I just want to add
yeah.
one quick thing. I was watching something a couple of months ago, but it seems like it's relevant. It's, it was a kind of an interview of a psychologist, if I remember correctly, and he was talking about neuroplasticity. So
Yes.
if you look at the persons who are very successful in their life and work or in other fields, so when life throws you down, they actually bounce back. And yeah, so it's like we learn more from the misery,
Right.
tough time in life.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so does anyone want to summarize some of the points we talked about today? Anyone want to say anything that strikes them before we depart? So I think one thing is that we said is that the pleasure, we talked about how blows can bring out more than happiness. So I think one to maybe try to stretch ourselves. We should think of a way to really today think of something that we can stretch ourselves in some type of a way to really to get out of the slumber. To get out of the slumber a little bit. Yeah, that's what I feel. I'm telling myself that, but so anyone else want to say anything that struck them that we can just share afterwards?
Well, at least from my experience, whenever there was a major change in my life, it's always, I won't say always misery, but there was a uncomfortable situation I was put in, and I have to come up with a different choice, which is not I will be comfortable with. I would say, whether it takes which path of the career you have to take.
You have to speak another thing. I don't want them. Yeah, you have to always.
So this is cool. Okay. Yeah. So I was just saying that whenever there is a major change in my life,
Yeah.
they're always associated with some uncomfortable situation, and I had to make a decision whether I want to keep continuing what I'm doing or I want to break the chain. But there comes uncertainty which you're not very familiar with and take that uncharted path. So you need to have a courage and believe in yourself. At least that's my personal experience.
Swayamji, go ahead.
I think that we also should learn to appreciate the good times in our life. It may be a minuscule of the bliss that we are, but if we don't appreciate that and recall that or hold on to it, then when the not so good times come, then we are going to be more uh, knocked down. So it's good to have both and not, yes, we learn more from the difficult times, but the happy times gives us a taste of what it could be if we overcome and get to that bliss.
That's a really good point. So we don't want to just we don't want to court misery. I think that someone says not to court misery, but at the same time, so that's true too, and that's where we get into the practice that we do gratitude, this Buddhism, this loving compassion towards ourselves, this gratitude. But what's that? That's giving us some. We need some type of a base, some type of a surplus to deal with the world. So what you're talking about, that's part of our resilience. That's like the one that we have to have. We have to have some, what we talked about, some what context we mentioned, some knowledge about our strengths too. So that has to be there as well. And that from that we have to build. That's our good friend actually. To our self-knowledge about our positive qualities, about our strengths, what we bring to things. That's our good friend because it gives us a buffer to deal with the unpleasant things. And we can learn, we're better able, those who have a good, better self-confidence, they're better able to, not an arrogance, but a self-confidence, meaning an accurate knowledge of what they are and what they are not. And they feel good about what they are. We're better able to learn from the bad experiences too. That's the one thing too. It's not, our whole life doesn't go into shambles if somebody critiques us, then we can better digest it. That's a good point. Thank you for that, Swami. Okay, so I think that's it. So then we'll close the day. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Rama Krishna Arpanamastu. So I think I like that. I think next week though, I think Swami A is coming, right? Is there any class on? If not, he can lead this card. Maybe we can have it and he can participate.
He doesn't come until, yeah, he comes Friday, late afternoon.
So he can. We can have this class next week just as a regular karma yoga, and he can come and he can sit here and he can guide it. That'll be nice.
But we said we may not Zoom it.
No, we can Zoom it. That's okay. They were said, yeah, that's fine. That's good. Okay. Okay. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you. There are 6 more people.